Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. I'm Mark Goldbridge and we're reacting to the big news that Chelsea have decided who their manager's going to be. It's going to be the Leicester City manager, or the former Leicester City manager, Enzo Maresca, formerly working with Pep Guardiola at Man City, managed Parma before, promoted with Leicester. He's now going to be Chelsea's manager on a 5-year contract. What are your thoughts on this? I've got a few myself. I think the first thing I would say that's really interesting about Maresca is that when I was doing my Talk Sport show on a Saturday night over last season, we did get a few calls from the Championship, and there were a few Leicester fans that were happy to being promoted, but not necessarily happy with his style of play. A couple of times people were saying he was boring. Now, in fairness, look, he is a good coach, and he has worked under Pep Guardiola, and you know, that's the in thing now, isn't it? If you've worked under Pep, you get a 5-year contract with Chelsea, but they've never done that before, to be fair. But it is a CV that if he hadn't worked with Pep, you wonder whether clubs would be really going for him. The style of play that Leicester played, look, they nearly hit 100 points, didn't they, if I remember correctly? They've gone and got themselves promoted outright as champions from the Championship. There seems to be a bit of a hipster choice among football clubs at the moment to go for up-and-coming young managers. Obviously, Maresca is 42. Kieran McKenna was under consideration as well. So I think that we mustn't be too surprised by it. And I want to sort of separate my thoughts into two areas, really. One, the coach, and two, the Chelsea Football Club. As a coach, I think he's interesting. I'm not going to profess to watch lots of Championship football, but I would imagine where Leicester fans and other people sort of think he might be a little bit boring is more based on the Championship and the way that people play there. Very possession-based, very press-based, very patient-based football that Maresca played with Leicester. And in the Championship, you're going to come up against a lot of teams that, you know, really will probably not open up against a team like that. So patience with possession is very, very important. In the Premier League, he's going to face a different world. If he'd been promoted with Leicester, teams would have a go at him, and it would have been interesting to see what Leicester could have done with his style of play, because we saw what happened to Vincent Kompany and Burnley. But at Chelsea, again, you're not taking over Man City, so teams aren't going to go, oh my God, here comes Chelsea with their possession style of football. Let's sit back and frustrate them. I think teams will have a go at them. So it could be an interesting, it's a risk, it's a massive risk, but it could be an interesting coach who, for many players that have played for him, say, you know, how methodical he is, he's a man manager. I mean, look, at the end of the day, there are similarities between Pep Guardiola and he's worked with Pep Guardiola. Mikel Arteta has worked with Pep Guardiola, he's doing very well at Arsenal. I think the interesting thing for me is that, and this is where I bring Chelsea into it, a 5-year contract for a guy who's been promoted from the Championship and used to work with Pep Guardiola. Does that fill Chelsea fans with a feeling of a sense of certainty and success is around the corner? I just think Chelsea Football Club are a bit of a mess, the way they run themselves. So Chelsea are now going to go for coaches that have worked with Pep Guardiola to try and build their own Man City. And a 5-year contract when you've managed... Well, a 5-year contract for a manager is like building your turkeys a new chicken hut or a turkey hut for January. They're not going to be there. It's a 5-year contract when you've sacked Tuchel, Potter and Pochettino in the space of just over a year. I mean, are Chelsea now going to go the other way and just stubbornly stick with their project for 5 years regardless? Because I think it's very hard to support Chelsea at the moment as a Chelsea fan and understand what they're going to do. So I think in one way it's exciting to bring in an exciting young manager to the football club and say with the young team that they've got that this is going to be a project that we're going to stick with. But on the other hand, you do worry about whether that will actually work, because that was meant to work with Potter, it was meant to work with Pochettino. And as we know, Pochettino left because he didn't like the ownership decision-making that he wasn't allowed to be part of. So we believe that Pochettino fell out with them because of recruitment and sales that they had planned. So does Maresca become what De Zerbi was at Brighton and what they wanted McKenna to be, which is you're just thinking, you know, I don't have any say, I just get given the players to coach. It's a way that Some football clubs in the Premier League seem to want to follow the Brighton model and do it. It'll be very interesting to see how it works at Chelsea. But am I surprised by that? Nothing surprises me out of Chelsea anymore. I think that's the big thing. I think with Pochettino, they were stupid to get rid of him and not follow through on a project that on year one I thought was actually moving in the right direction. They finally looked like they were a team that could do something. They're going to start a new project now. They're going to be in the Conference League. I can see it working with Chelsea to a certain extent, but I think they've almost got to replicate the Arsenal model with Arteta. If you're going to bring in a manager like this, then you've got to be really patient. And if you look at, that's the model I would look at. I think that there are similarities in relation to this guy's worked with Pep Guardiola. He wants to play a possession style of football. But patience is the word, isn't it? That's the word. And I don't know whether Chelsea have got it. I mean, I'd be very interested to get your comments in on this. What are your thoughts on this appointment? A 5-year deal for a manager that's worked with Pep, got promoted with Leicester, possession style football. Is it going to work at Chelsea with their ownership, who they don't even listen to their fans anymore? You know, the fans wanted Potter out, they did it. The fans didn't even want Pochettino out and they did it. So it's a really weird run football club and they don't have patience. So I would look at it and go, okay, look at Arteta. He was given free. I mean, look, already you fall apart on the Arteta model because Arteta was allowed. What people don't realise about Mikel Arteta is he's got the power at Arsenal. He's not a manager by committee. He is on the committee and he has a big say. He walks in and says, get rid of Aubameyang, get rid of Ozil, get rid of Kolasinac, get rid of whoever else. And the club did it. And they stood by him when the results went bad for a little bit because they had a long-term project. I just don't trust Chelsea. I think on one hand, it makes a lot of sense to do this sort of thing. But on the other, I just think they are so... You never know what they're going to do. And I think that to me is the big problem you've got as a Chelsea fan, is you just don't know whether you can trust any project and you don't know whether there's any patience there. And it is back to ground zero, of course, because everything that Pochettino did has just been thrown in the bin. So, look, I predicted with Pochettino that it wouldn't work out. I didn't predict it would be over in a year. I thought he'd take you to fourth, maybe there for 2 or 3 years, and then you'd realise he's the guy before the guy. Chelsea win titles. That's what they've done in the last 20 years. Is this Maresca going to make them win titles? It's got to be Pep Guardiola to do that. He's got to go in and, you know, revolutionise that football club. That ownership will be a problem. And I think some football clubs, maybe even my club, Man United, are looking to follow down this model. And I don't think it's the right one. So ultimately, it's a safe bet to say it won't work because that's basically the legacy of Todd Bowley's Chelsea. This is not Abramovich's Chelsea, where you sort of... You know, you sort of looked at the ruthlessness, but it always worked. Get your comments in below. Smash a like on the video. I'll speak to you on the next one.